Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to wait here a few minutes and allow some of the other attendees to join on before we begin. We have a great presentation with Ptc Therapeutics today, and we're really excited. So just hang shortly for us, and we'll start up in about a minute or two. Alrighty, it seems like we've got a good amount of people already signed on, so we can kind of kick things off a little bit sooner. Again, thank you for joining Jeff Foundation's virtual workshop series. My name is Danielle Edwards. I'm Director of Community Engagement. For those of you who don't know me, I look forward to meeting you very soon. And for those that you do, welcome back. We're so excited to have Ptc Therapeutics with us today, who will be speaking about their drug Adaloren, clinical trials, and genetic testing 101. This is a great presentation, so feel free to ask any questions you may have for the Ptc team, and they will answer them after the presentation in the chat section below. Sorry, I meant to drop them in the chat section below, your questions, and they'll answer them after the presentation. So thank you all so much again for joining us. With that being said, I'll pass it over to our guest speaker, Melissa Russ, and she will introduce the rest of the Ptc team. I hope everyone enjoys the presentation, and again, drop your questions in the chat below, and this will be recorded. So thanks, and thanks again to Ptc.
Thank you, Danielle. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm a patient engagement liaison with Ptc Therapeutics. First, I would like to say thank you to the Jet Foundation for giving us the opportunity to share with the community today. Second, thank you to all the patients, caregivers, and families joining us today. I'm excited to spend the next hour with you sharing more information on Adoloren clinical trials and genetic testing. Today, we have Dr. Vinay Penamatsa and Ryan Miller, certified genetic counselor. Vinay is the medical director and clinical lead for the nonsense mutation Adaloren program at Ptc Therapeutics. Additionally, he supports the development of a new treatment for mitochondrial diseases. He graduated from Sochu University in Suzhou, China in 2010. He trained at Gandhi Medical College in India, where he completed his residency and practiced at Yoshiida Hospitals and Little Star Children's Hospital. He has interest in clinical research and is committed to work towards the development of unmet needs in rare diseases. He has been involved in nonsense mutation Duchenne clinical trial studies, along with other indications such as cystic fibrosis and Huntington's disease. Ryan Miller is the Director of Clinical Science and Diagnostics. In this role, Ryan works closely with biochemical and molecular laboratories to facilitate the early and accurate diagnosis of several rare genetic conditions. Prior to joining Ptc last year, Ryan worked for over 5 years at Sanofi Genzyme, focusing on lysosomal storage disorders. Before his move to industry, he spent 8 years working as a genetic counselor in a pediatric genetic clinic at SUNY Upstate in Syracuse, New York, seeing patients with a wide variety of genetic disorders. Ryan has a Master's of Science in Genetic Counseling from Mount Sinai School of Medicine and is a certified genetic counselor. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Vinay. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you, Daniel. Thank you, everyone, for joining the call today with Ptc Therapeutics to discuss Ataluren clinical trials and genetic testing 101. And thank you, Jet Foundation, for providing this opportunity to show what PTC has been doing in nonsense mutation DMD. Before we start, let me put forward, okay, I think technical error again. Before we move forward, let me put the forward-looking statement for the webinar, and then let me take to the next step about Ptc Therapeutics. Ptc Therapeutics is a small biotech founded by Stu Pelz, who is the current CEO at Ptc Therapeutics now. We have been established since 1988, and with our corporate headquarters in New Jersey and international headquarters in Dublin, Ireland. We are actively engaged in the discovery, development, and commercialization of best-in-class therapies for rare diseases, which includes Duchenne muscular dystrophy, spinal muscular atrophy, oncology, which includes multiple studies in oncology, leiomyosarcoma, diffuse intrinsic Pontiac glioma, and gene therapy studies. Over the past 20 years, PTC has grown over to more than 1,000 employees, and we have commercial footprint in about 50 plus countries. We strongly believe that in the rare disease journey, we are committed to provide the best-in-class therapies, and we believe in extending the life moments for patients with rare diseases. That has been our more core value, and we all at PTC strive and work together to bring best-in-class therapies and to develop best-in-life moments for the patients in rare diseases. Before we proceed forward, I would like to give you an overview about Ataluren. What exactly is Ataluren? Ataluren has been conditionally approved with 2 of our key studies in Europe for ambulatory patients, for patients more than 2-year-old with DMD caused by nonsense mutation. And the drug is commercially available in 40 countries, either through commercial access or a named patient program or compassionate access. Currently, at the moment, Ataluren is still considered as an investigational drug in the US, and we are in talks with FDA regarding the approval in the US. We have a clear plan path forward for the registration, and we are currently discussing with internal and external stakeholders and completing additional study which is required to demonstrate the clinical benefit of Ataluren in subjects with nonsense mutation. Ataluren is a TID dosing drug, which is an orally available small molecule, which the dosing regimen is TID with 10 mg per kg in the morning, 10 mg per kg in the evening, and 20 mg per kg in the evening dose. The reason it is 20 mg per kg in the evening is because we understand the challenges of the families, the patients, especially with the population. So in order to achieve, to avoid any disruptions and to maintain compliance with the dosing, we have doubled the dose of evening dose with 20 mg to attain the target plasma concentration and proper absorption of the drug. The key benefits of Ataluren are, we have a significant clinical studies which shows there is a slow in disease progression of the disease. As we all are familiar that as nonsense mutation DMD is a ascending progressing disease which declines muscle capability, which is caused due to lack of dystrophin protein, where dystrophin protein acts as a buffer which provides strength to the muscles in the lower limbs. With the lack of dystrophin protein, subjects or patients with nonsense mutation DMD tend to lose their ambulatory status over a period of time, which is slowly declining with the increase in age. So we have some clinical results which provides the benefit of slowly progression in the disease with Ataluren administration. This will allow patients to walk longer and stay more physically able to perform their duties and have decreased accidental falls in the natural course of the disease. As we all familiar that DMD involves multiple organs. After the muscles, it impacts the pulmonary function and also involves cardiac function as well. We have clinical results which shows the benefit of preserving lung function over a period of clinical trials and also improves the quality of life of the subjects. Overall, the safety profile of Ataluren is well tolerated, and there are very limited side effects or treatment emergent adverse events, which are pretty much limited with very minimal when compared with placebo administered subjects. The positive risk benefit profile promoted the EMA approval in 2014, and we also had Anvisa approval from Brazil in 2019. What is DMD, and what is the epidemiology and genetics behind the DMD? Over the past history, we have seen the incidence of DMD. It affects 1 in 3,600 to 6,000 live male births. But there is a lot of genetics involved in it. Like there might be mutations which might be from deletions or duplications or small mutations or nonsense mutations. I just wanted to clarify that Ataluren is focused for nonsense mutations. And over the year, we see about 20,000 children are diagnosed globally with nonsense mutation DMD. With this, I'll let my colleague, Ryan Miller, to share more his thoughts on the genetic concepts behind this.
Thanks, Vinay. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the benefits of genetic testing. So when we think about patients undergoing genetic testing, there's really a few different reasons that families and patients decide on genetic testing. So the first and primary reason for genetic testing is often to make or confirm a diagnosis. And so the doctor suspects that a patient may have a certain genetic disorder, and identifying mutations within the gene associated with that disorder is confirmation of that diagnosis. The second benefit of genetic testing can be related to something which we call genotype-phenotype correlation. And it's kind of a complicated phrase, but essentially what it means is, can we understand the progression and long-term implications of a diagnosis based on what the specific change in the gene is? And those in the Duchenne muscular dystrophy community are very familiar with this because I'm sure many of you are all aware that certain mutations in the DMD gene can cause Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and other mutations in the gene can cause Becker muscular dystrophy. Another benefit of genetic testing is it can really help other members of the family to know what their risk is to either have the disorder or to have a child with the disorder. So you can learn, okay, is this genetic disorder, was this something that was inherited in the family? Or is this something that occurred for the first time in the patient undergoing the genetic testing? Vinay talked briefly about Adalaran being designed to help patients with nonsense mutations. And so that can be another benefit of genetic testing, is as medicine advances and many genetic disorders have treatments which are developed specifically for particular mutations in the gene of interest, it can really help patients and their physicians understand what types of therapies they may be eligible for. So that's another benefit of genetic testing. One of the largest benefits that I have witnessed for patients undergoing genetic testing, particularly when they have rare diseases, is it can give them a sense of community with the other rare disease patients out there that may have the same underlying genetic disorder. And so, there are many families who go through this diagnostic odyssey. They see doctor after doctor, they can't figure out what's wrong, and then coming up with a diagnosis based on a genetic test, they're able to put a name to the disorder that their child has. And putting a name to that disorder then also allows them to connect with others throughout the country and throughout the world who have children or may have the same disorder themselves. Some important points about genetic testing. So years ago, genetic testing really was almost always done with a blood sample, but technologies have advanced over the past few years, and a lot of genetic testing is now able to be done with a buccal swab. And so you can take a brush and do a quick cheek swab, and you obtain enough DNA to do the genetic testing that way. So just know that if in the past you had to undergo a blood draw, it's a lot easier now with a buccal swab. Another point that's important for people to understand is that our DNA, when it comes to inherited genetic disorders like this, our DNA doesn't change over time. And so if you have a genetic test done early on in life and you find an underlying cause for the disorder of interest, you don't have to have repeat genetic testing done later on in life. And so if a patient has had an underlying mutation in the gene identified, we know that that's the cause of their disorder, they don't have to continually undergo further genetic testing in the future. However, what is important to understand is that, so for the patients who have had genetic testing in the past and it has not identified a genetic cause of their concerns, or it has come back with ambiguous results, what we sometimes call variants of uncertain significance, it can be beneficial to repeat testing at that time because genetic testing has really advanced over the years. And so for those of you who have been thinking about the Duchenne muscular dystrophy field over the years, it used to be that looking for deletions or duplications in the DMD gene was more commonplace and easy to get done in a laboratory. But because the DMD gene is the largest gene in the human genome, sequencing every single letter of DNA in the gene for patients that didn't have deletions or duplications was a little more complicated in the laboratory, and therefore it was a lot more expensive and not always easy to get that testing done. So what I would say is, if testing in the past hasn't identified an underlying cause of the disorder, it can certainly be beneficial to bring that up again with the physician and say, hey, would further genetic testing be beneficial for me at this point? Thanks, Vinay.
Thank you, Ryan. So before we proceed further, I wanted to show how Ataluren works and the mechanism of Ataluren on the nonsense mutation. So what exactly is nonsense mutation? I know this is not a great example, but I'll try to make it simple. A nonsense mutation in dystrophin gene is something that prematurely stops even before production of a complete protein. It's like a stop codon acting before the production of a full protein. With this premature stop codon, there will be a lack of dystrophin protein, which leads to DMD. So a nonsense mutation, as I was mentioning, is like putting a period in middle of a sentence abruptly. For example, if you could see the note line here, I need a coffee in period order to function. I know this is not a normal sentence. So how Ataluren helps in treatment of nonsense mutation DMD? Ataluren bypasses the nonsense mutation and allows for the formation of full-length dystrophin protein. As you could see, Ataluren bypasses the, you could see the red mark under the last sentence. I'm sorry. Ataluren bypasses and allows the full-length formation of the protein, which will complete the production of full-length dystrophin protein. Over the past few years, PTC has conducted a series of clinical trials which showed a meaningful clinical benefit in terms of walking capabilities or timed function assessments, which I'll discuss on the two key studies as we have here. PTC started study 004, which was our first study in DMD subjects for patients aged more than 5 years, where we had shown the production of dystrophin gene in subjects dosed with Ataluren. And after that, we have conducted phase 001 study, which is a randomized placebo-controlled state, which led to conditional approval of Ataluren in EMEA. And similarly, we had another study where we showed significant clinical benefit in subjects aged between 7 to 16 years, which is 020, is also a double-blinded placebo-controlled study conducted for over a period of 48 weeks. And recently, we have conducted proof of concept biologic study where we have demonstrated production of dystrophin protein in subjects who are naively exposed to Ataluren for a longer duration. Currently, we are doing O41 study, which is a long-term safety and efficacy study. It's a global phase 3 study, and which will be rolled out in 2023. And currently, we are recruiting for O48, which is an open-label patients study for more than 6 months to 2-year-old, which we'll discuss down the line. Study 007, as I was mentioning before, this is a phase 2 international randomized placebo-controlled study designed to determine the pharmacodynamics and PK and safety and efficacy of Ataluren in nonsense mutation DMD. The key inclusion criteria for this study includes male subjects more than 5-year-old with nonsense mutation and 6-meter walking distance of more than 75 meters and stable use of concomitant corticosteroids. The study has 3 arms. It's a 3-arm study where the randomization was based on age, less than 9 versus more than 9, and corticosteroid use, yes or no, and a baseline 6-minute walking distance of less than 350 meters and more than 350 meters. And each group was allocated to a high dose Ataluren, which is 10, 20, 20, and 40, low dose Ataluren 10, 10, 20, and a placebo. And each group has about 57 to 60 subjects in each. And the primary endpoint is to determine the change in 6-meter walking distance at week 48. And other secondary endpoints include timed function test, which includes 10 meters run and walking capability, 4-stair climb and 4-stair descent, and other exploratory endpoints as dystrophin expression and cardiac function. Out of 185 eligible subjects, only 174 were randomized. So the intent to treat population has 174 subjects, but the primary endpoint was not reached in the intent to treat population. So the ITT was modified where 2 additional subjects who had invalid baseline values, we considered the screening values because of because of the lower limb injury for both the participants. So we modified that as a corrected intent to treat population, and the subject number includes the same. Although we did not meet our primary endpoint in the intent to treat population, as you could see in the diagram in the graph as shown, among the 3 arms, Ataluren tend to show the 6-meter walking distance from baseline to week 48 was smaller in population who were treated with Ataluren 10, 10, and 20. And the 6-meter walking distance was pretty much similar between the placebo group and the high dose Ataluren group, which is 20, 20, and 40. So the little decline from baseline shows the clinical benefit of Ataluren at dose of 10, 10, 20, which is the dose we are currently using, has shown significant clinical benefit in the subjects who were treated for 48 weeks of duration. Similarly, the effects, the therapeutic benefit effects were noted in other timed function tests as well. As you could see, the mean change in timed function test at week 48 in the corrected ITT population includes smaller increase from baseline, which demonstrates the better clinical outcome, which was shown by Ataluren. For example, the 10-meter run and walking distance, the difference between Ataluren versus placebo, there is a difference of 1.5 seconds. And the 4-stair climb, there is a difference of 2.4 seconds. And 4-stair descent, there is a difference of 1.6 seconds between the 2 groups, Ataluren and placebo, which shows a meaningful clinical benefit. As there were like 2 different populations with 6-meter walking distance more than 350 and less than 350, the reason we are stressing about the 350 population is because that is the most sensitive phase, which tend to show the changes in muscle decline within 48 weeks. Less than 300 is considered as ambulatory decline phase, who tend to show more aggressive decline over a period of 48 weeks. But in the pre-specified subgroup analysis, mean change in 6-meter walking distance, Ataluren has tend to show more meaningful benefit when compared with placebo treatment group in a subject's population of 22 to 25 in each arm. The changes in 6-meter walking distance in the ambulatory decline phase, which is 6-meter walking distance less than 300, where a group of 32 patients in Ataluren and 31 patients in placebo arm were observed. And even in this subgroup, Ataluren tend to show more clinical benefit with a difference of 12.3 meters in Ataluren and minus 62.2 meters in the placebo group. So the mean difference is about 30 meters between, at week 24, there is a difference of 32 meters and a 49 meters benefit of Ataluren versus placebo. Similarly, a clinically significant benefit was seen between high dose Ataluren, low dose Ataluren, and as you could see, we attained the significant p-value with baseline in four-stair climbs and four-stair design in ambulatory decline group and also in the corrected intent to treat population. Coming to the safety, as I was mentioning in my initial slides, we have a positive benefit of safety profile with Ataluren, where majority of the events are from the gastrointestinal disorders, which includes vomiting, diarrhea, or mild abdominal pain. Majority of the events are mild to moderate, and we do have a little fatal events, very little. And as you could see from the table here, the safety events between the placebo and Ataluren high dose are pretty much same, with little safety events observed in the 10-10-20 regimen of Ataluren, and no deaths observed in this registration study. Coming to ACT-DMD, this is a phase 3 clinical trial in patients with DMD that to evaluate the efficacy, where we have conducted the study with 10-10-20 mg dosing versus placebo in about 230 patients. The key inclusion criteria for 0-20 ACT-DMD is male subjects 7 to 16 years of age and screening 6-minute walking distance of more than 150 meters and stable use of concomitant steroids, which is the standard of care in DMD patients for more than 6 months. The primary endpoint of the study is observing the change in 6-meter walking distance at week 48. And the secondary endpoints includes change in timed function test with respect to 10-meter running and walking, 4-stair climb, and 4-stair descent. And North Star ambulatory as an exploratory endpoint with the pediatric patient-rated quality outcome of life as our exploratory endpoint. The randomization with stratification was based on age less than 9 versus more than 9, and previous use of concomitant steroids were 6 to 12 months versus more than 12 months. And baseline walking, 6-minute walking distance as less than 350 versus more than 350 meters. As you could see, the primary outcome measures 6-meter walking distance for the ITT population. The least scores mean change in 6-meter walking distance from baseline over 48 weeks, where Ataluren treated patients experienced a smaller decline in 6-meter walking distance, which is a positive clinical benefit when compared with the 48 weeks of treatment with placebo. The reason we did not meet the p-value was because the outcome was significantly influenced by subjects where the 6-meter walking distance was more than 400 meters. Subjects where the 6-meter walking distance was more than 400 has little less decline or are at a low risk of losing ambulation over 48 weeks when compared with the rest of the population, like in less than 300 versus less than 350. However, we have shown significant clinical benefit in terms of secondary outcome measures, which also impact the overall performance of the subject with respect to timed function test. As you could clearly see, Ataluren treated patients exhibited less of decline in timed function test over a period of 48 weeks when compared with placebo. And we have met the statistical significance value with our ITT population in terms of 4-stair descent. As you could see, the p-value we attained in descent 4-stair was 0.012 when compared with placebo. However, as you could see, the decline was less in Ataluren treated patients, which shows the meaningful clinical benefit over a period of 48 weeks. Similarly, we have noted a significant clinical benefit in exploratory endpoint where mean change in North Star ambulatory in ITT population and the patient subgroup with baseline 6-minute walk distance more than 300 to less than 400. The reason we potentially excluded over 400 was because of their low risk of losing ambulation and low risk to see therapeutic benefit with Ataluren. In ITT population, Ataluren treatment favored a reduced decline in North Star ambulatory over 48 weeks when compared with placebo. Similarly, in the subgroup of subjects where 6-minute walking distance was between 300 to 400, Ataluren treatment significantly reduced the decline in North Star ambulatory over 48 weeks when compared with placebo. We noted a similar safety profile compared with our existing and also with the past studies, where majority of the events are mild to moderate and very few events are considered serious. And majority of the discontinuations due to study drug were only because of we were only noted in 2 patients. As you could see from the overall treatment emergent adverse events table, we had similar events observed in placebo group and also in the Ataluren group. As I was mentioning earlier, majority of the events are from the gastrointestinal disorders, which includes vomiting or diarrhea or pain abdomen, which is pretty much common, and these events are considered mild in any other study. Coming to O16, the reason I wanted to discuss about O16, which I wanted to connect the dots when we discuss more about O48. O16 is an open label study design where we observe subjects for long-term safety to have a strong safety profile for the subjects who were exposed to Ataluren. The study is only being conducted in the US and Canada. The main inclusion criteria for the study is to have enrolled in any other prior PTC study or have received Ataluren through our siblings program. As you could see, we have subjects enrolled from 007, 004, and 020 who all entered into the extension study and then entered into study 016 and continued to receive access to Ataluren through the open label program and contribute to the safety data. As from our 2015 cutoff, we have a strong safety profile, as I was mentioning earlier, where majority of the events are from the gastrointestinal disorders, and most of the events are mild to moderate and very few serious adverse events. I would also like to present our STRIDE data, where STRIDE is referred to as Strategic Targeting Registries and Interaction Database of Excellence, where we have subjects who are currently receiving Ataluren through commercial access or other PTC access in ex-US countries. And we compare the data with the Synergy data, where Synergy is referred to as Cooperative International Neuro Research Group. So subjects in STRIDE registry take Ataluren along with the standard of care corticosteroid, where subjects in Synergy receive corticosteroid alone as standard of care. So we wanted to compare the benefits of Ataluren when compared with the natural history group, how Ataluren is benefiting the subjects when taken in along with the corticosteroid. We have a 5-year follow-up of these subjects, and our most recent data cut is around Jan 31st, and we released a press statement on around September 20th about demonstrating the long-term benefits of taking Ataluren when compared with the Synergy data. Currently, we have about 20 plus countries where we have multiple subjects enrolled in the STRIDE registry, contributing to the long-term efficacy and safety data of Ataluren. With the very recent safety data as of January 2021, as you could see, patients who are using concomitant steroids along with Ataluren, majority of the subjects, very few subjects had discontinued Ataluren that arose due to that had even due to Ataluren, but majority of the subjects had mild to moderate adverse events. And there are no life-threatening adverse events observed in the STRIDE data, and we have a very strong profile to support the registry. We have a recent data cutoff as of 2021, but unfortunately I couldn't upload the slide with the recent data cutoff, but I'm using the data cut from 2018, where we had about 217 subjects. But as of January, we have about 250 plus subjects in the STRIDE, 278 subjects in the STRIDE data. As part of the efficacy in the STRIDE registry, all the subjects had a propensity score to demonstrate the age at loss of ambulation, age at stand from supine transition, age at foreclimb transition, and pulmonary function and cardiac function. I just wanted to reiterate that all the subjects in the STRIDE are open label and are receiving Ataluren from a very long time, even before from the clinical data, even from the clinical studies or from the commercial access. From the efficacy data, you could clearly see the red dotted line is the subjects that have been on the STRIDE registry, and the gray dotted line is the subjects from the Synergy data who are using only corticosteroid as standard of care. From the 2018 data cut, we could notice there is a difference of 3.9 years between subjects in STRIDE registry versus the Synergy data, which demonstrate the strong clinical benefit of Ataluren when used along with the standard of care. But with the recent 2021 data cutoff, I would like to say the time to event analysis of 5 years of registry data has demonstrated that Ataluren, along with standard of care, has a median age of loss of ambulation at 17.9, which is around 14.5 here, had shown about 79.9 years old, with 12.5 compared with Synergy data, which shows that subjects with Ataluren had 5 years plus of age before they lose their loss of ambulation when compared with the natural data. And these effects are inconsistent with other therapeutic benefits as discussed earlier in terms of loss of pulmonary function. As we all know, as the disease progresses, subjects tend to lose their pulmonary capacity. So we compared the data between the STRIDE registry versus Synergy, where a propensity score was assessed between the subjects and age at predicted forced vital capacity less than 60. Ataluren has tend to show less than 1.5 year decline when compared with the regular Synergy population. The overall summary of the STRIDE registry is this is an ongoing observational study where evaluating the safety and effectiveness of Ataluren in patients with DMD. I could also provide additional documentation and publications which supports the Ataluren was well tolerated and has a similar safety profile consistent with what was seen earlier in other clinical studies. And also there was no observed DMD genotype phenotype difference when compared with Ataluren. In propensity score matched populations between STRIDE and the Synergy, the age at loss of ambulation was significantly higher in STRIDE, which is about 3.5 from the last data cut, which is 5 years now with the very recent data cut, when compared with the Synergy data who are receiving the standard of care alone. With that, I will complete the Ataluren overview. I wanted to take you into the current ongoing study at Ptc Therapeutics, which is Ptc 048 DMD, which is being conducted as part of our commitment to the EMEA to demonstrate similar safety and absorption effect in subjects less than 2-year-old. So as part of our pediatric investigation plan, we have designed this study in a very safe and careful manner to show that Ataluren would have similar benefits in subjects with nonsense mutation DMD between more than 6 years old to less than 2-year-old male boys. This is a phase 2 open label study to evaluate the safety and pharmacokinetics of Ataluren in children from more than 6 months to 2-year-old. The primary objective of the study is to assess the safety and tolerability of Ataluren in male children. And the secondary objective is to assess the pharmacokinetics of Ataluren. And the exploratory is to assess the changes from baseline in creatine kinase levels. We have shown subjects who have received Ataluren for a prolonged duration has showed decrease in CK levels in our very recent study 045. Creatine kinase is kind of a biomarker. When there is a muscle loss, there will be a higher volume of CK presented in the participant's blood. With Ataluren, as we have more dystrophin production and loss of muscle, there will be a decrease in CK value, which was shown in our prior studies. And we wanted to show similar effects in the pediatric population as well. The primary endpoint is assessing the safety in terms of type, frequency, and severity and seriousness, timing, and relationship to the study drug. And the secondary objective is to assess the pharmacokinetic in terms of area under the curve, time to maximum plasma concentration, and Cmax and thorough concentration. And the exploratory is to observe the change in baseline CK levels after 24 weeks of treatment. The current design is to accommodate up to 6 subjects with a minimum of 6, up to 10 subjects with a minimum of 6. And we follow the similar dosing regimen of 10, 10, and 20 in the evening. And as we have seen, we have a safety risk benefit of this dosing, which is consistent with our prior clinical studies. And to attain the to reach the target plasma concentration and to make it easy for the families to administer the drug, we made the dosing 10, 10, 20 instead of QID dosing, which is flexible with the subjects and the caregivers and makes it easy to administer. And given the age range, we have strong validation data to support administration of drug by a neomed syringe. We have 6 months to 2-year-old kids who might be really young to take the drug. So we can administer the drug through a neomed syringe safely for the participants. And there is a weight-based adjustment of Ataluren as these kids tend to grow quickly. So between the age range of 6 to 2, we have a weight-based adjustment during the 24-week period of the study. The key inclusion criteria is to make sure the subjects have the signed informed data consent, with the male subjects with confirmed nonsense mutation DMD, age ranging from more than 6 to less than 2-year-old, and body weight more than 7.5, and increased CK and genetic confirmation at the time of screening. And the exclusion criteria includes, as per the participating physician's opinion, if the PI thinks that the participation of the subject is not safe for the kid, we would exclude the subjects from participation. And if there are any major surgical procedures planned which might inhibit the readout of the data, we would be excluded. And any allergy to the components that are included in the production or in the manufacturing of Ataluren, which includes recipients like polydextrose, polyethylene glycol, any of these manufacturing formulations, allergy to these compounds would be excluded from the study. And ongoing use of aminoglycosides or any intravenous administration of renal toxicity drugs, which includes vancomycin or gentamicin, these drugs will be prohibited, along with other anticoagulants, phenytoin, tolbutamide, or paclitaxel. With this, I would like to conclude the study design, and thank you for providing this opportunity, and we are here to address any questions if anyone might have.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Vinay and Ryan. I think that was really great and covered a ton of stuff. We do have some questions here coming in. Again, if you have any other questions, please just drop them in the chat section below. So we'll start with this one. My son is 7 years of age, has a nonsense mutation on exon 58, but no clinical trials available for his age. So how can I go about getting Adaloren for my son?
Yeah, currently we do not have a study that is open for enrollment, especially for this age group, about 7. But I would direct this question to Melissa and see, if we can direct the call, from the physician towards the compassionate access.
Absolutely, and I just want to add to that, on Jet Foundation's website, we have a clinical trial cheat sheet where you can go and look. And I think this is why it's so important understanding your child's mutation so that you can find clinical trials that they may or may not be amenable to and can participate in. Here's our next question. How compassionate use program can help, and how long does it take getting the medicine to work in DMD patients? I think they're probably looking a little bit more just for clarity on compassionate use and what that means.
Melissa, would you be able to help address this question? The mechanism for compassionate access.
Yes. So we have a mechanism for compassionate use. And if you want to just send me a message through the chat, I could follow up with you and what the process is. It does have to be clinician to clinician that submits that request with the medical justification, and then it takes about 5 business days for PTC to follow up with that clinician on compassionate use.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Can you mention exactly what happened in the adverse events?
Sure, definitely. What exactly, maybe I didn't get the question properly. You wanted to see the overall therapeutic safety profile?
Yeah, it just says, can you mention what exactly happened there?
So it, like any other clinical trial, usually have some unwanted adverse events. It can be either directly related to the study drug, or it can be because of any other events. Let me give you an example. So for the subjects who participated, generally tend to have some kind of events which are not normal. For example, pain abdomen or headache, or abdominal discomfort or vomiting, which is observed in any other clinical trial, not just Ataluren. So when compared with, I cannot compare with the rest of the drugs, but I can confidently say Ataluren has a strong safety profile. As you could see from our study 016, which has subjects from where we have subjects from over the past 10 years in the US and Canada, are continually receiving open label access. Ataluren had showed very limited adverse events, and majority of these events are categorized as mild, moderate, severe, and fatal. But as you could see from the historical data, most of the adverse events are mild and moderate and are recovered within very short time who are receiving Ataluren.
Great, thank you. Next question we have, will Adaloren work after a patient has gone through microdystrophin gene therapy?
I'm sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. So
you're
is the subject a nonsense mutation?
it doesn't say.
So it completely depends, but what I can say is Ataluren helps only right through in the nonsense mutation genes. So before we answer that, we need to confirm the mutation and also see the current situation of the subject, like the family or the patient.
When do you expect Adaloren to get FDA approved?
That's a nice question. I was expecting this. That is the reason I covered, but I'm happy to answer it again. We have a clear path forward for our registration. The company and the leadership are engaged in the discussions with the regulatory body, and we are currently having key discussion with the internal and external stakeholders. And we are yet to complete another study to demonstrate clinical benefit, and we have engaged in discussions with the FDA. So once we have the readout, we will disclose that publicly about our plan, and we are currently looking forward for the submission down the line.
Great. Do you have any plans to up the doses on Adaloren?
No, actually, we demonstrated the dose ranging study earlier with the study 004, where we had 007. Where we had demonstrated 10, 10, 20, and 20, 20, 40. The majority of the benefits was seen with the dosing at 10, 10, 20, and we would recommend this would be the current dose, and we do not have any plans to up the dosing from 10, 10, 20 regimen.
My son is on Exondys 51. Am I able to obtain Adaloren for him?
We need to confirm the genetic nonsense mutation, and if accessible through any of the open enrollment program, and if qualified to fit for the Ataluren study, we can definitely include the subject. But I would direct this call to Melissa to see if there is any other open channel for this subject to see if he's qualified.
For that specific therapy, your child has exon skipping. So unfortunately, with Adaloren, it's specific for a nonsense mutation. So only children with nonsense mutations would be able to take Adaloren.
Thank you, guys. Can Adaloren be taken by subjects who have had gene therapy? How does it interact with microdystrophin?
There is no evidence to state that Ataluren does not work in subjects who under who already completed the microdystrophin therapy, because we haven't encountered with those scenarios yet. But I can circle back with the internally and see if that would be qualified.
Okay. I'm a newly diagnosed mom. How can I go about genetic testing and seeing if my son has a nonsense mutation?
I'll take that. So I think the best way to go about that is to talk with your doctor or neurologist about getting genetic testing done. And the specifics of which test and which lab to use are really a good conversation to have with your doctor. Sometimes it depends on insurance, but there are also programs out there if insurance is an issue with getting the testing covered. But I would just recommend that you talk with your doctor and they'll be able to make sure that you get the right test done.
Just want to add, Decode Duchenne is a program that allows free genetic testing for patients and families impacted by Duchenne. So please feel free to look that up if you've not heard of that or have taken advantage of it. All right, let's see what else we have. My son is on Emflaza, and maybe we can do Adaloren. Will he have a better chance at making more dystrophin?
Sorry, I missed the question. Could you please repeat?
My son is on Emflaza and looking to do Adaloren. Will he make more dystrophin?
I cannot really say that if Ataluren makes more dystrophin, but I think if the subject qualifies and if the subject can be enrolled, Ataluren, and we cannot compare Ataluren versus Emflaza because Emflaza has a different mechanism and completely belongs to a different genre of drugs where it is considered as a corticosteroid, and Ataluren is a completely different molecule. But there is a strong evidence to suggest that when Ataluren taken concomitantly along with the steroid has shown significant benefits in the long term, which also is strongly supported by the recent STRIDE data where subjects has received Ataluren plus steroid has shown like more benefits when compared with subjects only on steroid.
Can I share more information with my doctor about Adaloren? Is there information on your company's website?
Yes, absolutely. And if the physician would like to have more questions, please feel free to direct it to Melissa, and she can distribute that accordingly, appropriately to the right channels.
We are currently struggling to access Emflaza. Will we struggle to access Adaloren as well?
I
quite did not understand, what exactly is it? Yeah.
I'll take that question. So if you could reach out to me, I would love to talk through what's going on and work with your case manager through Ptc Cares and see, what we can do from that perspective. And it will be the same process in regards to Adaloren once it is approved in the US. Having that case manager be the one that helps you through the process.
Melissa, do you mind touching on Ptc Cares a little bit too here? I think just saying that again, I think would be important for families listening.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're not familiar with PTC, we do have a program called Ptc Cares. It's an internal program where you have this case manager that is your go-to person to help with scheduling and getting you on therapy, working with your doctor's office. If there's any challenges from a financial perspective or resources that you need, you can connect through Ptc Cares. What's also great about Ptc Cares, they work with multiple specialty pharmacies. So unlike your traditional brick and mortar pharmacy, you always have a nurse, a pharmacist, just at the touch of your fingertips when you call and you have any questions.
Great, thank you. Clinician is recommending Adaloren. What are the chances for it getting through a compassionate use? I'm wondering if this is for these questions, you know, and if you guys can hear me, are coming from families outside of the country. So maybe just touching on that a little bit. What does Adoloren mean for patients and families in other countries?
So I can only speak to the US process and the compassionate use process there. It is clinician to clinician. We do have a process and an email address that clinician provides information. If it is someone from outside of the country, I can definitely get you in touch with our patient advocacy individuals that support that specific region.
They just wrote back in the USA, so okay.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome. All right, I think that's kind of about it. If there's any more questions, please drop it in the chat below. And I said this before, but this recording, this webinar will be recorded, so please feel free to watch it and share it with others in the community you may know who might benefit from it. But if that's all for questions, I'll let you guys wrap this up here, and just want to say thank you so much to PTC and the team for coming out and doing this presentation. I think it was really informational, and I think a lot of families will benefit from this and being able to watch this recording. If you have any other questions for the company, please feel free to reach out to Jet Foundation. We're happy to direct you. And please, again, if you have any other, you know, feedback or suggestions or things like that too, we'd obviously love to hear about the webinars as well. Vinay, Ryan, and Melissa, thank you guys so much. And thank you all so much for joining our webinar series. We look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
Thank you from our
Thanks for having us.